Now, I know when you started the company, Beyond Clean, that the focus was on the sterile processing area. How did that come about? And then talk about the evolution into the other podcasts that you host that you mentioned as well.
Yeah. So what's really great, if you go to beyondclean.net, you'll actually be able to see our story. My co-founder, Hank Balch, had just run for the presidency of Isham, now HSPA. He didn't win. It was a pretty high profile election, and I'll leave it at that. But coming on the heels of that, he had done a lot of work to cultivate an audience on social media. And if you go to LinkedIn and just, search hashtag sterile processing or hashtag SPD, you'll see that there is an incredibly engaged community of sterile processing professionals there. And I decided at that point, as I was talking about having been an entrepreneur, that I really should start looking at starting a podcast, especially in sterile processing, because that's where my experience base was, even as an educator and a sales representative. And somebody I worked with at the time said, are you following Hank Balch? He's got a really unique message, really engaging on LinkedIn. And so I went and looked him up. And the next time I saw that coworker, I said, you're right. He's amazing. I said, if I was going to start a podcast with somebody, that's who I'd want to do it with, somebody who already had an audience. And he said, you should do it. You should do it. And so I think it was like 12:30 at night. I reached out to Hank on LinkedIn and sent him a message. We started that podcast and we didn't meet until 9 months later at the first HSP or Isham annual conference that spring. And we had started recording in August the prior year. So that's how it took off. He said yes. And then from there, the brand really, built quickly. We weren't building it initially for any other reason than, to help create awareness for Hank and his budding consulting business. And then myself just wanted to take my regional presence and make it more of a national presence. We realized over time that there was a lot of opportunities. Hank was building 2 different media brands. And he said, what if I just take my consulting business and put it under Beyond Clean? I was like, no problems here. No point to duplicating your effort. So we wrapped it up underneath that. And honestly, as far as hospital consulting goes, Hank's done not a lot of that since then. We've consulted a lot on social media strategy, content creation. We create content for our partners. I mentioned the virtual conferences, lots of other things, CE approved content. So really with that educational focus, even when we create content on social media, it's not meant to be pitchy. It's meant to always provide more value to the audience than we're asking them to give, especially when it comes to listening to the podcast or contributing to social media content or attending a conference. So that's where it kind of took off.
Well, let's tell our audience a little bit about the specifics of what you guys do, because you're not just sending patients home with a playbook to help them adjust to leaving acute care and going home. You're actually getting diagnostic feedback, right? Can you talk a little bit about what kind of information is going back to the practitioners and how that benefits the patients and maybe the overall infection prevention outcomes?
Spot on. So for our devices that we're sending in a patient's home, that kit I was talking about, it's all customized by a patient's disease state. So a diabetic patient may have different peripherals and different education and content on our tablets than a cardiovascular patient or a cardiopulmonary patient or a new mom. It's all customized by disease state. So we have over 15 different peripherals that are available with our kits. And they will collect different vitals and biometrics along the way. And so for a hypertensive patient, it could be as simple as a scale and a BP. For a patient that may need in-home ECGs and glucometers, we can accompany that kit with that as well. And essentially, as a patient were to use the technology, and it could be the vital and biometric technology, it could be the symptom surveys, it could be the mental and behavioral health content. As they engage with the technology overall, all that data is aggregated, synthesized, trended, and then sent back to the clinical teams. And so the clinical teams on the other side can see the trends and see the data in real time And then the system is smart enough to be able to tell the patient, or I'm sorry, to tell the clinician, if they have 100 patients, which ones to focus on and why. So perhaps they've missed their medications 3 days in a row. That's a big issue. Perhaps they haven't weighed themselves and they're a CHF patient and they have to do that. And so we'll actually tell them and alert them which patients to focus on and why they should do that. One of the really nice things, and one of the things we spent so much time on during COVID, is making sure that we can involve different care teams. Folks were so busy from the clinical perspective, and still are, that it's not always a luxury to have somebody just sitting there and monitoring things. So what we wanted to be able to do is perhaps that patient who's Dr. ABC's patient, maybe they get routed over that physician, whereas a patient who has a care team somewhere else can get routed one way as well. So it's really not only about ensuring there's connectivity with the care team and the patient, but also ensuring that there's convenience in the clinical workflows that are there.
And I assume that experience led to your passion and recognizing the need to create a platform for practitioners. Tell us, what is Circulating Life? What does that mean?
Okay, so the Circulating Life is really my brainchild from my experience when I started working in the operating room, because I was new. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't have just a real good foundation of how things were supposed to be done. And I was confused a lot. And so when I would go home in the evenings after a day, while I was still on orientation even, I'd go home and try to learn some more things, look up something else, maybe get online and see if I could find somebody that was writing about their experience, or maybe somebody that's blogging about it. And I couldn't really find anything. Yes, AORN existed back then too, and they have a lot of good resources. But at the time, I was really new to the OR, and I really just wanted somebody's firsthand experience of what they were going through and what was this like and how did it feel. And I guess maybe to find somebody else who had a shared experience as me. And that the idea that I wanted that and I couldn't find it kind of just rolled around in my head for a while. And after a few more years in the operating room and really just seeing that I couldn't find online what I thought we needed. So I thought, well, I'll make it and I'll do it myself. So in 2018, I launched the Circulating Life. But really the idea behind the blog is that it's written by an operating room nurse, somebody who understands what it's like. And it really is talking about life, because we are more than just our jobs. We are moms and dads and siblings and friends and parents and all these things. And so when you can come and find a platform, I guess, where somebody else is living all of those things and understands it and just talks about it from their point of view, I think it helps make you realize you're not alone, and that you might not be experiencing something unique just to you, somebody else's experience too, and maybe we can talk about it. So that's kind of what kicked off the Circulating Life.
Until just a very few years ago, with the implementation of EMR systems, paper folders were the standard. So now we've come so far, so many changes. How do you communicate? How do you connect all the various factions within the healthcare system between the patients, the practitioners? So tell us about what you do at Tiger Connect, how you're working to solve the problem, and how all these issues and stress relate to nurse burnout.
Yeah, I think, what we're really trying to do, and most especially for nurses, is give them a platform where they can communicate with the people they need to communicate with in order to take care of their patients, but then also connect them in a meaningful way to the nurse call systems that exist in hospitals that are connected to patients, but then also connect them to the patient monitors that are in the room. And you may go into a hospital today, and one that may not have technology like Tiger Connect, and find that nurses are not connected in a meaningful way to these devices, meaning there's no real way for them to reach out to the physician taking care of their patient. Maybe they have to page them. They may not be connected to the monitors in a patient room. So there might be a monitor beeping in this room and another room where they have a patient in. They're not necessarily connected to the nurse call machines that are in the room. So if a patient is in need and is asking for something, there might just be a light blinking outside the room with no context for what that patient needs. So what ends up happening is all of this creates a very stressful environment for the nurse, because there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of false alarms, and they don't have a situational awareness as to what is going on with each of their patients in real time. So that's what we're attempting to provide the nurses at Tire Connect, is through a very simple user interface on their phone, connect them to the people they need to be connected to, and then connect them to the monitors and the nurse call systems that are connected to their patients, and give them a view. Hey, if I have a half a dozen patients that I'm taking care of every day, or this day or this shift, this is exactly what's going on with them in the current moment.
Outside of telehealth and obviously pre-pandemic, the EMR implementations, what kind of digital health innovations have you seen, either as a result of COVID or through the natural progression of the technology in the space? Anything else you can share with our audience?
Yeah, a couple of things that one that we put into place as a response to the pandemic. Actually, two. One is our Tobias, which is our AI-assisted chatbot. In the organizations trying to still go live with their EHRs and still needing that support, that at the elbow support, having to deal with small physical spaces and social distancing, or limited access to COVID units or other units within the hospitals and things like that. We're able to see the use of Tobias, who and at one organization was able to answer about 80% of the questions. And we see chatbots all the time out there in our, well, you've probably been to a website in the last 2 days where something's popped up in the bottom corner of would you like to chat about this? Or our operators are standing by. That's not a real person. That's a bot, just like Tobias there. I believe your Amazon returns are handled by bots now that you think are a real person.
And SealShield is probably best known for our leading washable keyboards and mice. In 2006, we invented the world's first dishwasher-safe keyboard and mouse, and now we're the market share leader in that niche of medical-grade keyboards and mice. To what do you attribute the success of that product?
It's a lot of things. We talked about our values earlier. So I look at customer obsession. And so we developed a product that, or a suite of products that we knew that our customers wanted and that addressed a problem in the healthcare space. Because healthcare acquired infections, they're one of the number one killers of Americans. They're also one of the leading causes of adverse events in hospitals. So they're taking people's lives and they're affecting people's quality of lives. And so we sought about developing products which address that problems. And so, of course, the customers embraced that. But it's also the relationships that we've cultivated over the years with our distribution partners. And really, we have a lot of fantastic partnerships with a number of distributors, and I attribute the development of those relationships to our sales team. So we've got an excellent sales force, both inside and outside, who've developed those distribution relationships. We start with a great product that addresses a really important need, and I think that's been our recipe for success.
I agree with that. I think, it's a leading class product in terms of features and benefits. The SealShield keyboards and mice are completely submersible. They're rated to IP68, which means they can be fully submersed. They can be soaked in bleach. And with a reputation of quality, I think the SealShield brand carries a lot of weight in the marketplace. And in the keyboard and mouse products, we're manufacturing those in 30 different languages and distributing them worldwide. Really excited to have two guests. It's a Clean Talk first. And let me start with you first, Bradley. What more can you tell us about your background and Touchpoint Medical and why you're on Clean Talk today?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So my background started with industrial design or product design. I went to the University of Cincinnati, ended up in a number of different areas, including toy design, consumer electronics, worked at design consultancy, eventually moved into capital goods and healthcare equipment with a company called Intermetro about 30 plus years ago. And from my design background, moved into a product management role. What you get, as I say, no good deed goes unpunished. We design products and until you're not supporting it right, you're not promoting it right, they're like, go do it. So that's kind of my stepping into the sales and marketing side. Then 6+ years ago, Intermetro divested of the healthcare technology products, and Touchpoint Medical was born on June 1st of 2016, privately held with very deep roots going back to 1899. So it's a wonderful position to be in, to be able to have the freedom and the ability to fund new product development efforts. So as I said, of my 35 years or so, about 25 years of it has been in the capital goods or medical equipment side of things.
Well, we love product developers and innovative healthcare solutions. So we look forward to talking to you more about the great solutions you're developing over at Touchpoint Medical. Paul, tell us about Peripheral Resources and your background.
Sure. The president of Peripheral Resources, my background is in electrical engineering and finance. Peripheral Resources is a distributor as well as a master systems integrator. We've been around for over 37 years. We work in a lot of different vertical markets, but primarily in healthcare at this point. That's where our focus is. A lot of the things that we try to do is try to find better ways to facilitate the hospitals, try to make things easier for them to work with the patient and not with the technology. That's kind of pushed down on us. So we've been doing that for quite some time. We do work with other verticals, including some OEM development, and that's where a lot of our background in creating solutions and developing these solutions for our customers comes from.